Good morning, everybody. Today we have some very special guests here joining us for our November 11th, 2011 Assembly, Veterans Day. It's an annual event here at Wauseon High School and the Wauseon School District. We have some great honored guests here. We have our veterans. Let's have a round of applause for our veterans and guests. To start things off here, we are going to have our girls ensemble do the national anthem, and then we're going to remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. So everybody up, and we're going to let our girls lead us in the national anthem.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
I might just put it up there. Okay. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. With Veterans Day comes a lot of history. Today I want to go over some history as a history lesson to remind everybody what we're talking about. Today we gather in recognition of Veterans Day. What is Veterans Day and how did it originate? In 1921, an American soldier, his name known but to God, was buried on a Virginia hillside overlooking the Potomac River in the city of Washington. The Arlington National Cemetery, burial site of this unknown World War I soldier, became the personification of dignity and reverence for American veterans. Similar ceremonies occurred earlier in England and France, where an unknown soldier was buried in each nation's highest place of honor. In England, Westminster Abbey. In France, the Arc de Triomphe. These memorial gestures all took place on November 11th, giving universal recognition to the celebrated ending of World War I hostilities at 11 a.m., November 11th, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The day became known as Armistice Day. Armistice Day officially received its name in America in 1926 through a congressional resolution. It became a national holiday 12 years later by similar congressional action. If the idealistic hope had been realized that World War I was the war to end all wars, November 11th might still be called Armistice Day. But shortly after the holiday was proclaimed, World War II broke out in Europe and shattered the dream. 16.5 million Americans took part. 406,000 died. The families and friends of those dead long for a way to honor their memory. An answer to the dilemma of how to pay a tribute to those who had served in the latest Great War came in a proposal made by Representative Edwin K. Reese of Kansas. Change Armistice Day to Veterans Day and make this an occasion to honor those who have served America in all wars. President Eisenhower in 1954 signed the bill proclaiming November 11th as Veterans Day, and he called for Americans everywhere to rededicate themselves to the cause of peace. Additional significance was added to Veterans Day in 1958 when 2 more unidentified American war dead were brought to Arlington Cemetery from overseas and interred beside World War I soldier. One was killed in World War II, the other in Korea. A law passed in 1973 for future interment of an unknown American. Today we seem to take our freedom for granted. It is looked upon as a right that we inherit when we are born. We must remember it is that many have paid a severe price to obtain the freedom and keep it. No other country on earth allows its people the liberties that the United States of America allows. Today there is, and perhaps there will always be, conflict in the world, but the United States fortunately enjoys peace and freedom like no other country. Like other things of great value, this security did not come cheaply. Part of the cost has already been paid by Americans who answered the call to military duty when their country needed them. They served in numerous wars from Revolution to Iraq, Afghanistan, earning the special distinction, Veteran. But another part of freedom's cost must continue to be paid long after the guns have been silenced. The debt is owed Americans' veterans. Some need their country's help, even as their country once needed theirs, to readjust, recover from wounds, or to overcome hardships of age and infirmity. Most need and ask nothing in repayment of their sacrifices. Let us continue to help those veterans in need with the greatest possible compassion and efficiency. For the rest, since they ask no special thanks, we can pay tribute to them this day by recognizing what they have achieved and joining them in their resolve to keep America strong and free. The flag of the United States of America consists of 13 equal horizontal stripes, red top and bottom, alternating with white, with blue rectangle in the canton bearing 50 small white 5-pointed stars arranged in offset horizontal rows of 6, top to bottom, alternating with rows of 5 stars. The 50 stars on the flag represent the 50 U.S. states, and the 13 stripes represent the original 13 colonies that rebelled against the British Crown and became the first states in the Union. Nicknames of the flag include Stars and Stripes, Old Glory, Star-Spangled Banner. The colors in the flag: red is for hardness and valor, white is for purity and innocence, and blue is for vigilance, perseverance, and justice. The U.S. Code declares that a flag displayed horizontally or vertically against the wall should show the Union, the blue portion at the top, and to the viewer's left. That's a little history. Today, we also have special guests. Not only do we have our veterans who are part of being a veteran, they earn this honor. They have done something that none of us in here have done as students, and including myself. We take the freedoms that we have for granted. We take all the luxuries we have in this country for granted, and somebody had to pay the price for this. Many veterans are out there, just in our community, not counting the United States and all across the world. This is a day that we have the opportunity to say thanks. And I personally want to say thanks to all these people up here because they have made the ultimate sacrifice. And you're going to find out later what the ultimate sacrifice is. We'll have a poem at the end. Today, however, we have a speaker coming here. Her name is Melissa Stockwell. She's from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Seems like a long way from Wauseon, Ohio. After defending her country in uniform, Melissa Stockwell represented the United States in 2008 Paralympic Games in Beijing, China. In preparation for the Games, Stockwell lived and trained in the U.S. Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Stockwell has since moved on to become a competitive triathlete in 2010 and won both the national championship and world championship titles for her category. She is now hoping to once again become part of the Team USA when the para triathlon makes its debut in 2016 Paralympic Games in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Here are some of her major achievements, and she's going to tell you a lot. She's going to share her history with you. 2010, first place, ITU Para-Triathlon World Championships, Budapest, Hungary. 2010, first place, Nautica, New York City, Triathlon, Para-Triathlon National Championships. 2008, Paralympic team member, swimming, Paralympic Games, Beijing, China. 2008, American record 400-meter freestyle, U.S. Paralympic Swimming Trials, Minneapolis, Minnesota. I would like to warmly welcome Melissa Stockwell to Wauseon High School to talk to us.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks for that warm welcome. It's an honor for me to be here in front of you today to talk to you a little bit about my story. It's an honor to be able to celebrate with you the meaning of Veterans Day. And I'll say again, I said before, but these men and women over to my left who have currently served, or who are currently still wearing the uniform, or who have served, my heart swells with pride just to know that I'm representing the sacrifices that all of us have taken. So thank you. And thank you to Sherry and Franks for bringing me here today, and also to the Gold Star family that we'll hear from later. So, all right, so I'm here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story and how I'm in front of you today. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, would you ever be in Wauseon, Ohio on Veterans Day giving a talk to a bunch of high school students without a leg, I probably would have laughed, because nobody ever thinks that that's going to be where your path leads in life. I started out, I was very patriotic. I loved the American flag from a young age, and I always dreamed of growing up and putting on a uniform that had the American flag on my shoulder. I realized at a young age the freedoms that we have in this country, and I wanted to give back. So in college, I went to college at the University of Colorado in Boulder. And I joined the ROTC program. And I knew that when I put that uniform on for the first time, that's where I was supposed to be. That's what I was meant to do in my life. The pride that I felt when I walked around campus, and just the camaraderie I felt with the fellow cadets. I knew that was my place in life. While I was in college, September 11th happened. And at that time, we were in ROTC, and our instructor told us that it wasn't a matter of if we were going to get deployed to Iraq or to Afghanistan. It was more a matter of when. So in May of 2002, I was graduated from college with a degree in communications, but I also was commissioned into the United States Army. I became part of the Transportation Corps, so I went to my officer basic course at Fort Eustis, Virginia, and then I ended up with my first duty assignment, which was at Fort Hood, Texas, as part of the 1st Cavalry Division. Now, I got there in the end of 2003, and in early 2004, orders came down that the 1st Cav Division would be deploying to Iraq in about March of 2004, and it wasn't really a big surprise. I kind of knew it was coming, so we went about the preparations. We got all of our vehicles painted the sand color. Our uniforms went from the BDUs to the DCUs that we wear in the desert. We got a little bit more combat training, and before we knew it, on March, we were all boarded a plane, same uniform on, same bulletproof vests, weapon in hand, and we got off in the sands of Kuwait. I was in Kuwait for about 2 weeks before making the long trip up into Iraq. And my main job over there, I was a convoy commander, which basically means that I was in charge of leading a whole bunch of vehicles from one point to the next, really delivering various supplies. I'm in charge of the route, of the soldiers, of the mission, and just ensuring that everything happened that everything went about as planned, communicating back with headquarters and really making decisions if anything were to happen. So I've been on the road a lot, which I'm sure a lot of you know that's not the best place to be over in Iraq. And I'd been there for about 3 weeks, and the day came that would change my life forever and leads me to being up here in front of you today. And that day was April 13th, 2004, so over 7 years ago. And I was on a routine convoy through central Baghdad. I was in a Humvee, which I'm sure all of you know what a Humvee is, and We were about 10 minutes into the route. We were going from right into the green zone, which is right in central Baghdad. We went under an underpass, and this big boom went off, this big explosion went off, and our vehicle swerved, and we ended up crashing into this Iraqi lady's house. And to make what could be a very, very long story very short, is that basically that blast resulted in the loss of my left leg above the knee, where I stand in front of you, how I stand in front of you today. It was severed at the site, and I was losing a lot of blood. Lucky for me, there was a combat medic that was about 2 vehicles back. He rushed up, he pulled me out of the Humvee, he got a tourniquet started, he got an IV started, and I was rushed to an American hospital in central Baghdad for my life-saving surgery. What was an extremely traumatic day could have turned my life in 2 directions. It could have turned it in a negative direction, or it could have changed it in a positive direction, which I chose early on to make sure that happened. When I left Iraq, I went through Landstuhl, Germany, and then I traveled on to Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C. And this was still about a year into the war, and I remember I was wheeled into Walter Reed, and I looked around, and around me there were other servicemen that had lost 2 limbs, 3 limbs, sometimes even 4 limbs, their eyesight, traumatic brain injury. So I looked at myself, and I looked down, and I thought, wow, I am one of the lucky ones. Not only do I have my life, but I have another good leg, I have my mind, my eyesight, and I made a decision right then that I was not only going to accept the loss of my leg, but I was also going to try to live my life for those that did pay the ultimate sacrifice and those that did not come back at all. So, unfortunately, my body wasn't agreeing with me. I had a lot of infection, a lot of surgeries, a lot of laying around, kind of seeing my peers progress and wanting to be there as well. But eventually I was there. I learned to walk again on my prosthetic leg. Eventually, I learned to do more than walk. I learned to run. I learned to swim, because I really knew that I wasn't going to be myself until I got back into athletics. I had been a competitive gymnast when I was younger, dreamed of going to the Olympics. So when I started to do these activities, I had these high hopes for myself, but I wasn't really sure what the outcome could be. So raise your hand if you've heard of the U.S. Paralympics, not the Olympics, but the Paralympics. All right, I see a lot of hands, so that's good. So at the time, I did not know what the U.S. Paralympics was either, but when I was at Walter Reed, I learned about it. And basically, the Paralympics are just like the Olympic Games for athletes with disabilities like myself. So I knew in 2004 that in 2008, there was going to be a Paralympic Games in Beijing, China, and if I tried hard enough, I could qualify for that team, and I could go, and on the world's biggest athletic stage, I could wear a uniform with USA on my back, with the same proud, just representing my country that I love so much, the same way I defended it over in Iraq. So I decided to try for it in the sport of swimming. And if any of you are swimmers, you know about the laps in the pool, and or the early mornings, the evenings in the pool, the smell of chlorine and trying to get that out. And there was a lot of back and forth in the pool, but I had this goal. And just like the Olympic Games, there's a Paralympic trials. You have to beat out your competitors, and I made the decision to move out to the Olympic Training Center to pursue that goal. I had a new career in prosthetics, which is fitting amputees with artificial limbs, but I decided to put that on hold, and I moved out to Colorado Springs to train in hopes of making it to the Paralympic Games. And in April of 2008, that was Paralympic trials, and I did well enough where I was named to the U.S. Paralympic swim team. And if any of you may have had, or if you haven't had, you will have kind of these moments in life that you wish you could go back and relive over and over again, because they mean so much to you. And to me, that day was one of those days. It had kind of symbolized to me that the whole journey, that from April 13th, 2004 to April of 2008, and now I was going to go on and represent the U.S. over in Beijing. It's something I can relive over and over again and just be proud of the fact that I made it there. So Beijing came and went. I wish I could show you my gold medal, but that wasn't in the cards. What was in the cards was a big lesson, and the lesson I learned then is that it's not so much about being on top of the podium and the medals you get, but it's about the journey to get someplace. And I was nominated by my teammates to carry the American flag into the bird's nest, and in front of a sold-out stadium and flashes going off, and just being able to carry this object, this symbol that I was I had so much pride built up in me, just knowing that I hadn't done well athletically, but my teammates realized that it's about the journey to get someplace, and it's another one of those moments that I kind of go back and relive over and over. So now, so that was swimming. That was in 2008. I've recently turned to the sport of triathlon. If you don't know what that is, it's swimming, biking, and running. You see the leg I have now. This is my everyday leg. So I just walk with this leg. It actually has a computer. It's called a C leg. It has a computer in it. So I charge it every night, just like you would charge your cell phone or your computer. And it allows me to do things like go downstairs, step over step. It quote knows if I stumble, it won't let me fall. It has a stumble recovery feature. I can actually tap my toe 3 times. It goes into a free swing mode, so the technology is pretty incredible. But for triathlons, I have actually activity-specific legs. So I have I come out of the water, I come out of the swim where I don't wear a prosthetic leg. I put on my biking leg, I go for a bike ride, I come back, I put on my running leg, and I go for a run. So if any of you are triathletes, imagine going into your transition area and looking over and seeing these legs being laid out and flown everywhere as you come back into transition. So it can be pretty comical to kind of stand around and watch the spectators watch. But so that was in 2009, and I got into triathlon, and turned out I wasn't too bad at it. And as you heard, in 2010, and now actually recently, I came back from Beijing, China, where I competed in my second World Championships, and was honored to come across the finish line first, just like last year. And this year was made a little bit sweeter because we swept it USA 1, 2, 3. So I finally got that gold medal. I finally got to stand on top of that podium and to hear that national anthem, and just to realize this whole journey that I had gone through and really how special it was. And it might be cheesy to say that things happen for a reason, but the way that my life has excelled and the things that I've done since I lost my leg, I'm so proud to be here in front of you today as an above-the-knee amputee. I'm proud of the accomplishments both athletically and my new career of prosthetics, and just what I've been able to do. And I can honestly say that I've really done more in my life with one leg than I ever imagined I would do with 2. So it's just kind of crazy. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you, some of you are seniors out there, you're going to be going to college soon. And whatever you decide to do, if you decide to join the military, if you decide to go on to a career of an academic career, of whatever it may be, or athletics, we all kind of have these paths that we take in life. And some of you may know, some of you will learn that those paths, they don't always go as you plan. There's all these kind of twists and turns in your life, and a lot of times they come up on you quick. And I've learned a lot that's a lot about who you are, on how you overcome those obstacles, and I think it tells a lot about your soul, just how well you can overcome those and persevere through, and to mentally tell yourself to make it a positive experience. It may not be at the time, but we all have it inside of us to make it a positive experience, and then to move forward from there. I know a lot of you are probably familiar with the Wounded Warrior Project, and I actually currently live in Chicago, and I'm a part of the board of directors for the Wounded Warrior Project, and it's a organization that is near and dear to my heart, because I wouldn't be here had it not been for them. But they help soldiers immediately when they come back from Iraq and Afghanistan. They meet them at their bedside, and they have the resources, whether it's counseling, financial resources, the help for the loved ones that give up their job and their home to move and take care of their injured loved ones. All the resources that are necessary to help this wounded soldier excel and survive, the Wounded Warrior Project is there for. So I know a lot of you helped raise money to donate to the project, so thank you for that, and just know that it will make a difference in lives like my own, and you'll really help these wounded men and women move on to a better life. So Veterans Day, raise your hand if you know a veteran. All right, if you're not raising your hand, you can now raise it, because you know me, and I'm a veteran. But we wake up every day, and I think, as he had mentioned, a lot of times we take what we have for granted. But I can tell you right now that life is short, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be alive. But there's a lot of men and women that don't come back, and a lot of these plans that we have, we go about our everyday life, but we really don't know what can happen. So to take advantage of every day that we have, to wake up and tell your loved ones, give them a hug, thank them for what they've given you and how they've allowed you to succeed. And it's short, but it's also long. We have a long life. And whatever you guys want to be, whatever you think you can be, whatever your dreams are, if you dream hard enough, I guarantee that you can achieve those dreams. And in 10 years, 20 years, when you're older, if you have a family, if you don't, you'll look back and I think you'll just be amazed at what you can accomplish, at what you can and what you have accomplished. So on Veterans Day, I stand here today. You can see I proudly show off my prosthetic leg. I'm very proud of how I lost it. I'm very proud to be called a veteran here in the United States and to stand along my fellow brothers and sisters who have done the same thing. So today, be thankful for what you have. If you don't have a flag, get one and fly it high and fly it proud, not just today, but every day. But thank you, first, to the men and women over here, to the family behind me, and be thankful for what you have. God bless America. Thank you.
The WEA, the Wauseon Education Association, the teachers at this school, and all the schools in Wauseon had a Gene Day, and the money that they raised from that Gene Day is going to go to the Wounded Warrior Project. I didn't get that check for here. I think that's going to be presented. It was presented? Okay, it's already been presented. So part of that staff is sitting out here, so I want to thank our staff for that. The other part of this is the students sitting in here also have donated to the Wounded Warrior Project, and they're probably thinking, how did you guys go about doing that? Mrs. Burke and the student council at the homecoming dance, the profits that were made from the homecoming dance, student council has a check today to present to the Wounded Warrior Project in the amount of $500, and that would be coming from a lot of the students because we had over 500 of them there at the dance. So I wanted to thank our student council and our students and our teachers for that nice gift. There is the check. Right now, we're going to do something very, very important. We're going to come down. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to get us a chance to meet the wonderful people that are sitting right here in front of the auditorium. And they're going to tell us at least their name and a little bit about themselves. And hopefully, we will give them the respect and the honor that they deserve. I'm going to start right up here in the front. On this side. Sir? Thank you.
Ken Brink, Navy, Vietnam, 62-66.
Thank you.
Jim Geip, United States Navy, World War II.
Thank you, sir.
Jim Zeller. I was in the Marine Corps in World War II, and I was in the South Pacific, mostly on Saipan.
Thank you, Bill. DeFord Schwall, United States Army Paratrooper, 101st Airborne Division, Screaming Eagles, World War II, 1942, 1946.
Roger Harmon. I was in the Army in Vietnam, 1st Cavalry.
Thank you, sir.
Richard Colon, U.S. Navy, 1951-55.
I'm Darrell Garman. I served in the U.S. Army from 1965 to 1967. I served in Korea during the Vietnam conflict with the 110th Military Police Company. Also, I served 20 years as your postmaster in Wauseon.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm Delmer Tanner, and I was in the United States Air Force from 1955 to 1959. Thank you.
Make me get up here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
My name is Greg Vela. I was in the Marine Corps. I left to go to the Marine Corps when I was in Michigan. I went to Vietnam. I was in Vietnam for 4 years, came back home, and landed in Ohio. Wasion.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Jack Ross, U.S. Army Mobile Dental Service Corps, 1950 to 53.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
I'm Jake Mans. I enlisted in 1968, served on active duty until 1971, and the rest until 1988 I was in the reserves, U.S. Air Force and then U.S. Army. Thank you.
Jerry Miller, United States Air Force, Strategic Air Command, 62 to 66.
Again, thank all of you for coming and blessing us with the honor of having you in our presence for this assembly. It would not be the same without you guys here. So thank you, and let's have a big round of applause for these guys. Now I have the honor and privilege of introducing Sherry Ann Franks, and she's the Americanism chairperson. Not sure exactly what that all means, but I do know this, that every year, well ahead of time, we're talking about our Veterans Day Assembly, who we're going to get to come. She helps organize this for our school district, and I really, really appreciate all the time and effort that she puts in. Next year, when the veterans show up, just so everybody knows, they are going to park in front of the school in the loop if they want. They're not going to be walking from the back parking lot or anything else. I want to remind them now that that's not going to happen. You pull your car up in front and you park along the curb and you come in here. So hopefully we'll get any and anybody that wants to, and we'll make sure we remind everybody on that day that we're not going to park in the front of the school so that these special guests can be here and have an easy access to our school. With no further ado, Sherry Ann, come on up.
Good morning. Before I go any further, I would like to let you know that each and every one of you will be receiving a bookmark as you exit today. These are compliments of Tomahawk Printing. They have Melissa's picture on here as a soldier and then as a Paralympian swimmer. And I have to say that I have tried gallantly for 3 years to get Melissa, and I think she just ran out of excuses and she finally said yes. So the quote that's on here is, all of our dreams come true if we have the courage to pursue them. And I dreamed for 3 years. I ran across an article in the VFW magazine, and it was her infectious smile that captured me. I read the article and I thought, that's who I have to have. And so, you know, trying and reaching for the stars, you always land somewhere soft. And I am thrilled that we were allowed to have Melissa come and speak with us today. Also, I want to introduce to you a special lady, and the reason that I've asked her to come and share her talent with us is that, as many of you may have heard, Honor Flight is now closing the era of the World War II veteran because there are so few of them, and they are gearing up to take Vietnam veterans and Korean veterans to Washington, D.C. So this is kind of our special tribute to the World War II era and the veterans, and Sometimes I always say, when I'm really stressed out, you know, God, just why aren't you listening? And somebody said, maybe you need to be quiet and listen. Maybe He is talking to you. And I honestly think that He was the day that I met this lady that I'm about ready to introduce. We had out-of-state guests that went to Souter Village, and I didn't want to go, to be honest with you, but we went. And I ran into a cousin who said, hey, Sherry, you need to go to the museum. There's a Civil War exhibit there. And I said, oh my gosh, is our great-grandfather's stuff in there? And he said, no, it was his brother's, actually, that it was his last letter home. So while I was reading the last letter home, I heard this beautiful voice coming from an area. And I turned and went around, and here was this lady dressed in the village clothing, and her voice was just amazing, and playing a harp, and it was just awesome. So a little bit of background is Mrs. Parson. Her husband was the superintendent of Fayette Schools for many years. She is one of 8 children, as well as was he. He was also a veteran from 55 to 56, serving in the U.S. Army. And she told me that when they were doing dishes, they would always sing songs during the World War II era. And one of her favorite songs was "There Will Be Bluebirds Over the White Cliffs of Dover." And I researched that real quick, and it was a song to bring peace when we were fighting over a cross. And the bluebird is a symbol of happiness. And I think once you hear it, you'll understand that it was a beautiful song. Mrs. Parsons had 2 brothers that served in World War II and lost a brother-in-law in the Battle of the Bulge. And she was telling me about the day that World War II was declared over. She said she ran down the street. She was 10 years old, had a little American flag saying, we won, the war is over. So it's significant that we have her here today. And what better day to have Melissa and the rest of our visitors and honored guests here on 11/11/11. So without further ado, I will have Mrs. Parsons treat us to 2 songs from the World War II era.
Just you wait and see. There'll be love and laughter and peace ever after. Tomorrow, when the world is free. Jimmy will go to sleep in brilliant and clear. Colors with far deeper meaning than that at first may appear. Red is for blood of patriots who have died to free us. White is for justice and government of law. Blue is for honor and faith in all we do. This is my flag. This is all glory. The red, white, and blue.
Okay, next we have our band coming up here to play some melodies. Then we've got one poem, and then we will be complete. So I expect your total and complete attention. Even if a bell rings, we're going to stay in our seats.
Today, to honor our veterans, the band is playing Armed Forces Salute. And we ask that each veteran stand up when your song is being played, please.
Thank you very much, band. You did a great job. We have one final, Mrs. Franks is going to come up and we're going to end the assembly on one final thought.
This year I remembered 9/11 in a very unique and different way. I was able to go to Sunbury, Ohio, where we went and everybody had one thing in common. They were all Gold Star families. And for those that do not know what a Gold Star family is, when you have a loved one serving, you're issued a blue star to hang in your window. If something happens to that loved one and they're killed in action, you then become a Gold Star. It was a day that I will never forget, and often found myself trying to feel like Dorothy on The Wizard of Oz, clicking my heels together and saying, please get me out of here. It was a tough day. Parents walked around with pictures on their back of t-shirts that could have been any one of you. 9/11 inspired a lot of people to join the armed forces that day, and a lot of sacrifices were made. And if there's anything that I can instill in each and every one of you today, that's to walk away and know what respect is. Respect yourself, respect your friends, and today, and above all, respect veterans. The freedom that you have every single day comes with a price. Whether it's a missing limb like Melissa, a mental illness from coming back from seeing such tragic things in war, or you've paid the ultimate sacrifice by giving your life. This year was our 4th year of doing a Blue Star, Gold Star presentation. We always come up with Gold Star parents in a really unique way, and this year I was blessed. Our first Gold Star recipient was 26 years old. The other one that we are honoring here with his parents here today was Sergeant First Class Charles Atkins. Charles Atkins leaves behind 5 children, 5 small children. I want to introduce you to his parents, and they're going to bring up a portrait that our artist paints, as she does every year for those that have lost a loved one. And Mom asked us, could you please put him somewhere with the angels so I know where he's at? The portrait, as you look at it, has angel wings behind it. There's no doubt in my mind where their hero is at today. Charles was 36 years old when a suicide bomber took his life. The room was full of soldiers. He was their leader. And he was able to get all but 10 out. He took the suicide bomber down with his own hands, and it cost him his. So when you leave today, I want you to remember not only Melissa and not only our veterans that are sitting over here, but I want you to think about their son that paid the ultimate price so that you can enjoy everyday freedom. I'd like to introduce to you Mr. and Mrs. Good. They are the parents of First Sergeant Charles Atkins.
Good morning. Approximately 18 years ago, my son sat where you sat. I see all you kids. I see these young men sitting here, and I think about the days when Chuck brought all of his buddies home, and they played football, basketball. They were the best buddies. They stayed in contact all these years. The one took care of his funeral. 16 and a half years ago, he got out of school and he called me one day and he said, Mom, I'm going into the military. I'm like, are you sure, honey? You have to remember, Chuck was my only child. And he said, that's what I want to do. And he was so proud to do everything he could for the military. We'd go to places and They'd be honoring the military, and I'd say, go up there and tell them. And he'd say, no, Mom, that's not what it's all about. That's not what it's all about. He had his dog tags, but he always kept them hid underneath his shirt. That's not what it's about, Mom. It's not about honoring me. It's my soldiers. Everything was about his soldiers. And so many soldiers came up to me crying and said, I was nothing without your son. He helped me to be the best I could be. He wanted me to be the best I could be at everything. He helped me to pursue my career in the military. Everything in my life, I owe to your son. I had people falling at his coffin, crying, just sobbing, you know. And my son was that type of kid. He was one of you. He was all of you. There was 3 things my son loved. He loved the Lord, he loved his family, and he loved his country. What greater gift that a man could do but give his life for his friends? My son gave his life for his friends, for his mom, and for all of us. Not only him, but every soldier that's made that step in life, that gave their life. It was for us. It was for us that they died. And we should every day be thankful that we have them all over the country, out of the country, still serving to protect us so that we have this freedom together. I want to read you this poem. A friend of mine that retired from the Navy brought this to me, and I'd like to read this to you today. The soldier stood and faced God, which must always come to pass. He hoped his shoes were shining just as brightly as his brass. Step forward, now soldier, how shall I deal with you? Have you always turned the other cheek? To my church, have you been true? The soldier squared his shoulders and said, no, Lord, I guess I ain't. Because those of us who carry guns can't always be saints. I've had to work most Sundays, and at times my talk was tough. And sometimes I've been violent because the world is awfully rough. But I never took a penny that wasn't mine to keep. Though I've worked a lot of overtime when the bills got just too steep. And I never passed a cry for help, though at times I shook with fear. And sometimes, God forgive me, I've wept unmanly tears. I know I don't deserve a place among the people here. They never wanted me around except to calm their fears. If you've a place for me here, Lord, it needn't be so grand. I never expected or had too much, but if you don't, I'll understand. There was a silence all around the throne where saints had often trod, as the soldier waited quietly for the judgment of God. Step forward now, soldier. You've borne your burdens well. Walk peacefully on heaven's streets. You've done your time in hell. Thank you.
Well, again, I want to thank all of you in the audience for your cooperation. You guys have been outstanding. I want to thank the veterans. I want to especially thank our special guests, the band, the ensemble that came up, our speaker, and most of all, the veterans. It's their day. Let's have a round of applause.